Chapter 15. Into the abyss, grief-stricken but determined, Claire rose from the floor, her gaze fixed on the bedroom. It was where it had all begun. The bed, the whispers, the shadowy figures. Somewhere in that room was the key to bringing her son back. She carried Ethan's body upstairs, laying him gently on the bed. His face remained expressionless, his breath shallow. She knelt beside him, whispering, "I'll bring you back, Ethan. I promise." As Claire moved to the center of the room, she steeled herself for what was to come. She knew what she had to do. She needed to face the thing beneath the bed, the entity that had been there from the beginning, waiting patiently for its moment to strike. Claire grabbed the flashlight from the bedside table and crouched down. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the edge of the blanket, revealing the darkness beneath. Her heart raced, and for a moment, she hesitated. The space under the bed was impossibly dark, far too deep for what should have been a small, confined area. Taking a deep breath, Claire turned on the flashlight and aimed it into the void. At first, she saw nothing but dust and shadows. But then slowly, something began to take shape. A pair of glowing eyes stared back at her from the farthest reaches of the darkness. They were cold, unblinking, and filled with malice. "Who are you?" Claire demanded, her voice steady despite the terror clawing at her insides. "What do you want with my son?" The eyes blinked, and from the shadows emerged a figure, tall, gaunt, and utterly inhuman. Its skin was pale and stretched tightly over its skeletal frame. Its mouth, twisted into a cruel grin, opened slightly, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. "He is already ours," the creature hissed, its voice a chorus of whispers. "He belongs to the darkness now." Claire gripped the flashlight tighter, her mind racing for a solution. There had to be a way to defeat this thing, to save Ethan from whatever fate awaited him in the shadows. But how? How could she fight something that seemed to exist beyond the physical world? Suddenly, she remembered her grandmother's words. "There's always a way to break the curse, but you must face the darkness head-on, without fear." Without fear. It seemed impossible, standing before this nightmarish creature. But Claire knew it was her only chance. She took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage she had left, and stepped forward. "I'm not afraid of you," she said, her voice firm. "You can't have him." The creature recoiled slightly, its grin faltering for a moment. Claire pressed on, feeling a surge of strength. "I won't let you take him." With that, she swung the flashlight down, smashing it into the creature's face. There was a deafening screech, and the room erupted into chaos. The shadows surged forward, enveloping her in darkness, but Claire fought back with everything she had. Chapter 16. The Final Battle. The darkness closed in around her, but Claire refused to give up. She could feel the creature's cold, bony fingers brushing against her skin, trying to pull her down into the abyss. But she fought back, kicking and thrashing, determined to break free. In the midst of the struggle, Claire remembered the knife she had grabbed earlier. It was still in her pocket, and with a burst of adrenaline, she reached for it. She swung the blade wildly, cutting through the darkness. And for a brief moment, the shadows seemed to retreat. The creature let out another ear-piercing scream, and Claire seized the opportunity. She thrust the knife forward, driving it deep into the heart of the shadowy figure. There was a blinding flash of light, and the creature dissolved into a cloud of smoke, vanishing into the void. For a moment, everything was still. The room was silent, the shadows gone. Claire collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. She'd won. She'd defeated the darkness. But when she looked up, Ethan was still lying motionless on the bed. His eyes were closed, his face pale. "No," she whispered, crawling toward him. "No, please." She cradled his limp body in her arms, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan, wake up." Please wake up." But there was no response. Chapter 17. A Glimmer of Hope. Claire sobbed into her son's chest, her heart breaking with every passing second. She'd come so far, fought so hard, only to lose him in the end. But then, just as she was about to give up hope, she felt it. A faint, rhythmic thumping beneath her palm. Ethan's heartbeat. "Mom?" A weak, trembling voice called out. Claire lifted her head, and there he was, Ethan, blinking groggily as he stared up at her. His eyes, no longer hollow, were filled with life once again. "Ethan!" Claire cried, pulling him into a tight embrace. "Oh, thank God. You're okay." Ethan hugged her back, though he seemed dazed and confused. "What happened?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "It's over," Claire whispered, rocking him gently. "It's all over." Epilogue: Shadows Remain. The next morning, the sun rose over the quiet suburban neighborhood, casting a warm, golden light over the house. Inside, Claire sat by Ethan's bed, watching over him as he slept peacefully. The events of the previous night still weighed heavily on her mind, but for now she was content to have her son back. But as she gazed out the window, something caught her eye. A shadow, small and faint, flickered across the room. It was barely noticeable, but it was there. Claire's heart skipped a beat, but she quickly shook off the fear. The darkness was gone. She had defeated it, or so she hoped. Thanks for listening.